What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to an all-new episode of TAETRO Talks. Thank you all for being here with us today. Excited for today's show. It's the first time in a little while we actually have an interview with a really inspiring artist that has an upcoming 343 Pro Sessions, which of course we'll talk about in a little bit. But thank you all for being here. As I said, if you don't know, we're here live every Tuesday for TAETRO Talks, either doing an interview with an artist or somebody who works in the industry, or sometimes we do call-in shows, which is a really fun thing too. So if that all interests you, make sure you subscribe, turn notifications on. We're also live on the 343 Labs channel, as this is a production of 343 TV, which is all about educational electronic music production content. YouTube.com/343 Labs. We've been putting out tutorials, streams multiple times a week with really amazing instructors. People that have had touring experience, lots of production experience, years teaching things like mixing and mastering, synthesis and sound design, things like that. And you can learn with those people for free on 343 Labs YouTube channel weekly, multiple times a week, I should say. Make sure you do that. We've got a giveaway running every week as well. So this week's giveaway, we're actually giving away a pro session. Pro sessions are these really amazing weekend-long deep dives with an artist where you go in deep into their creative process. They go behind the scenes, show off some of their projects, their approach to music making. So it's a really fun experience. And the artist we're talking to today actually has one of those pro sessions. So that's really cool too. I want to say hello to my friends in chat. Thank you for being here. Keshav, Skid, Music Bloxians, Yarn Chic, STK, music producer Ghost, hello, Sarah, Alexander, STK, Dex Jetto, Daya. Thank you for being here. I know everybody's got like a different time. It's a different time for everybody in the world, but I'm happy you could all make time to be at the show. Hi, Jen. What's going on? Welcome. Hi from Berlin. Oh, Alexander, amazing. 343 Labs has a school in Berlin and in New York, and we're online, so it's amazing. The Bobby Styles, what's good? And somebody asked in chat, who is Jimi Jules? Well, without further ado, why don't we get into it today? We've got an amazing, like I said, artist, DJ, producer, extraordinaire here joining us as a guest. So without further ado, let me welcome to the show our guest, Jimi Jules. What's up, Jimmy? Welcome.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Yeah, thank you for the invite. Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you. Spring is coming, so I'm feeling really well.
It's a different feeling, right? The change of the seasons.
Definitely.
And you just had a release, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, like on Innovisions, the number 98. It's the EP called Ham the Monkey. It's about the monkey, the first monkey actually the first monkey they shot into space and landed safely.
Was the monkey's name Ham?
Yes.
That's an amazing name for a monkey. Well, I want to get more into that and talk more about where that concept and all that came from in the process of making that new release. But
Sure.
I generally like to start these interviews getting to know the artist and having the audience get to know the artist by talking about how do you define yourself? Because in electronic music, you know, there's DJs, producers. Are you just an artist? Are you just a creative? Like when people ask you what you do, what do you tell them? How do you define what you do? Tough question.
I don't know. Good question. I actually don't know. I'm a musician.
Yeah.
I was born as a musician, or I more feel like a musician than a DJ.
Sure.
I feel like a musician / producer. DJ also, but actually most of my 33 years I played in band and played live and played instruments, you know. And of course I play a lot as a DJ, but I always play like live music influenced music. So basically awesome. I'm more kind of a musician.
Yeah.
Or I'm more like a guy who has fun with his instruments.
Yeah, that's a really cool perspective. Let's talk about that history in music. Like, what was your, how did you first start dipping your toe into the waters of music, and first instrument you picked up, first time you knew that you were born as a musician?
Also interesting question. I was born, or I would, luckily I was born into a musician family. So my mother was the only musician in my family. My grandfather was a musician. He played in orchestra, the trumpet, or cornet. I don't know the word
Cool.
in English. Maybe cornet too.
Yeah, they have cornet
It's kind of
English.
a horn too, you
Yeah.
know. Then my grandmother, she used to be a singer, like a Swiss folk singer. You know, like yodel.
Yeah.
I'm from Switzerland, so it's pretty like classic.
Yeah, amazing.
And then my aunt is a singer too. Then two of my uncles, they're playing like in the opera and the Tonhalle Orchestra. It's like two of the biggest, or the two most famous classical orchestras in Switzerland. They're
Wow.
touring also. And so my biggest inspiration was kind of my grandfather. He played the cornet. I was always around him, so I didn't grow up with my dad. I more grow up with my grandparents, grandfather, you know, and my mother too. But you know, the
Yeah.
inspiration came from my grandfather. And then when I smashed his cornet for the first time, it was like around 1.5 or something like that. So
Wow.
he bought me as a birthday present for my second birthday, or maybe third, I'm not sure. He bought me a small cornet. So that
Awesome.
was kind of the beginning, yeah.
Well, that's really cool. So it's like seems like classical traditional roots for you in music.
Yeah, I'm actually, most of the people, they are always, how do you say, when they write about me or talk about me, they are always mentioning this like this heritage from Martinique, you know, from the Caribbean islands and Africa and stuff. But I'm more influenced by like white music.
Right.
You
It
know,
sounds like it.
I'm really Swiss in this kind of sense. I really love like Swiss folk music, and I love brass music. Do you know
Yeah.
what brass music is?
Yeah, like
It's
brass
like
quartets
brass.
and things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like marching bands and like really
Yeah.
military stuff. I'm not into military stuff, but like the music, it touches me because I grow up with it, you know?
Yeah, it almost has a nostalgic like feel of home, I'm sure, or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, just having that sort of classical background foundation in the musical family, how did that influence you learning music and coming into? First of all, I want to know, how did the connection even happen between that traditional foundation and then the electronic music side of things? Like, how did that evolve?
Oh, this is a long way. You
Yeah.
know, I was trained like really hard. You know, this like Russians who trains really hard. I was this kind of kid.
Yeah.
So I started when I was 3, and like my uncles and my family, they are really, you know, they put a lot of pressure on me, or I had a lot of pressure. I felt a lot of pressure. Maybe I took it too personal, you know.
Yeah.
But like everybody, or in Switzerland, they're kind of famous, you know, in the music industry, in the classical music industry, not pop industry. So for me, it was like always, I always wanted to be like the same level. So I had to train hard. I went I went to a teacher like twice a week when I was 5 already. I
Wow.
was reading notes when I was 4 already. I had my first band, or I played in the first band when I was 6 or 7 or something like that. That was like by far the youngest. Then I switched teachers. Like I also had a teacher who was like more into jazz and blues, so he influenced me a little bit with
Yeah.
jazz and blues already, like from an early age. But my, how do you say, my inspiration, or what I really wanted to do, was like I wanted to be a trumpet player.
For sure.
So yeah, I trained a lot. And as a kid, when you are surrounded by a lot of musicians or the family, you are kind of really good, you know.
Yeah.
So I went to like this championships and won everything. And then I turned 14, and I went to sports class and I smashed a teeth
Oh no.
before like the championship, the biggest championship. And then it was the first time I didn't won. And then I
Wow.
stopped playing the trumpet.
That's
Really
crazy.
egoistically, you know, it's like, so I stopped the whole thing. And then it was more, you know, when you're a teen, you're a rebel, you know,
Yeah.
kind of this rebel. So I thought like, what like what is like
What's
the,
the
how do you say,
opposite? Like, what's the
yeah,
other
what is the
direction? Yeah.
total opposite? So
Yeah.
it was sports. So I started to do sports, and I started to play like the bass tuba.
Okay.
This is also the word in English.
Yeah.
So I started to play the bass tuba. Um, yeah, and this was like the foundation of my musical career, because I realized that actually bass is my instrument, not trumpet,
Interesting.
because I'm more the guy who needs to feel the music, you know?
Sure.
Like I need to be touched. I listen to music, but I have like a lot higher intense, or how do you say, um I feel more attached to bass music.
Yeah.
Like I'm
The
doing now,
groove
you
and
know.
the feel in
Yeah,
general.
not only the groove, it's more the, I don't know. For example, I like loud music. I like to listen loud
Got it.
music, you know. I need to feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then yeah, I had regular bands. I started with rock too and jazz, and when I turned 18 or something like that, um I went to jazz school. I switched the whole thing from classic to jazz. And then I was like there a little bit, not really happy. I really liked it, but it wasn't that kind of thing I wanted to do, you know?
Right.
So um, when I turned 19 or something like that, I saw Sven Fett for the first time. And that changed the whole thing, you know? I was like, just new at jazz at the jazz school. I switched from Lucerne to Zurich. Um, and then I saw Sven Fett, and this changed the whole thing in my perspective. Because as a kid, I loved Daft Punk and FX Twin, but
Yeah.
around my block there wasn't how do you say, a record shop or something like that. So I didn't know what this music was.
Right.
So I was always going on Wednesday to the to local like commercial record CD shops, you
Yeah.
know, to listen to Daft Punk, but they didn't know that this is techno or how it was made. And then when I saw like Sven Fett for the first time, it was also like around 2006 or something like that, 7, like just like the internet was coming up like faster, you know.
Yep.
You could Google something, and then yeah, from this moment on, I stopped doing all the more classical stuff and jazzy stuff and went full on with the electronic music.
Yeah. So was your initial approach to try to use your instrumental and your musical knowledge to kind of make your own productions, or did you start off with a more traditional DJing style?
I first started with producing. Like it was kind of the same time, you know. I had a
Hmm.
good friend. He was a really famous DJ at the moment, or like at this moment, like more hip hop. And I wasn't at all into hip hop. I was just into drinking,
Got
listening
it.
to punk and like other stuff. But he learned me all the stuff. He showed me the programs, and he showed me the music too. In the beginning, of course, Sven Fett was like the first guy who played techno in front of me. But I started more with lighter stuff, like more electro pop and
Yeah.
like this Justice stuff. Ed Banger from Paris, you know, like the French scene. And yeah, what was the question again? Sorry.
I guess it's just like how did this all start? And you kind of answered it. So
Okay.
how did you start forming your own? When do you think your the sound that we kind of know today, like how did that end up getting formed? Because you said you started more electro pop, that sort of thing, but like how did you develop into the electronic music artist that you are today?
That was I can say it. Wait. And it was 8.5 years ago.
Wow, so you like feel
I
like you
know
know
the
a date.
moment.
Yeah, the
I
moment.
actually know the moment where things has changed
Tell me about it.
drastically. Um, my girlfriend was pregnant. We were sitting on the bed. We was listening to Calabrese. It's a Swiss artist, like actually a friend of mine now. But I was like a big, or still, I'm the biggest Calabrese fan. You know, it's a good friend. It's a good mentor. It's like in yeah. For me, it's one of the best musicians in 2020 still, because he's always really honest. Most of the guys are not really honest, or are not really good in, how do you say, showing their honesty through music.
Sure. Can
And
you
then we was
define
like,
that though? What does that mean? What does that mean, showing honesty through music?
yeah, now most of the music is only fake music, in my opinion.
Define that
you
for me.
know,
What does that mean?
it's like it's about the message in the music.
Mhm.
Um, it's not just doing music because the fame. It's like, if you need to, how do you say? It's really, I never, no, never, nobody asked me this question ever, so it's really hard to describe. But
I think for sure there is a clear dividing line between music from artists that feel authentic, like they're doing something because, I mean, you described it as being born a musician. I think I can really resonate with that. Like, I just don't know anything else. That's just where my instincts have led me. And then you can definitely kind of sniff out when folks are maybe don't have that same passion, don't have it kind of in their blood, and are just sort of in it for the commerce aspect. Yeah, I guess you could say.
I guess it has nothing to do with like trained or not to be trained. It's
Right.
just the
Intention.
point of view. Yeah, the intention.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I know a few guys, they are really honest with their music. It's like, it's really hard to explain.
Totally.
Listen to Calabrese, and then you know what I mean.
Yes. So that was
It's
that was a super influential artist for you. In what way? I know you described him as a mentor. Like, in what way were you sort of like mentored, and how did that kind of evolve?
yeah, actually the kickoff was like 1 week before that scenery, or that scene on the bed. It was actually, he listened to my album, like it was like my master's degree album, and he listened to it, and we actually spoke for the first time together, and he gave me a feedback and blah blah blah. And then yeah, on, how do you say, in this kind of like, in this hour where we was listening to Calabrese, I realized that I should actually use all the instruments I have learned as a kid.
Right.
You know, till then I was like producing, but I had like different artists, and I need
It
to
was like
do
separate.
techno, and like the guitar away, and the trumpet away, and the tuba
Right.
away. All the instruments, and I all only went on like with Logic. I produced everything on Logic, and it sounded crap.
Yeah.
I didn't like my music, and then it was like, when I realized that Calabrese just does the music I was born with or grew up with. um, it made things a lot easier for me. So at this point, I did like 2 hours later, I did my first Jimi Jules track
That's
with
amazing.
more music, like with the guitar and trumpet in it, and this changed the whole point of view.
Yeah. So could you just tell instantly that it had shifted and that it felt right?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Since that moment, I didn't have depressions anymore based on producing.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And have you ever looked back? Have you ever gone into a kind of put the instruments aside again, and just gone a purely like in the box DAW approach, or have you stuck with this for the rest of your career?
Actually, it's really interesting. I'm not using my instruments all the time, but I have like, I afterwards I bought like a lot of synthesizers and other percussion instruments, like, but like, I guess, um my music is kind of special because I never quantize.
Oh,
I never
interesting.
use I never really use MIDI. I never I always, even arpeggios I play by my own. That gives like this strange feeling that it's not really tight, but
Right.
I like it. It's kind of like, it's techno. I'm doing loop music more like James Brown.
Sure.
I'm playing all by myself except kick and hi-hats, you know.
Right.
But like all the instruments in it or the music is just like actually jammed, you know, and then
Wow.
I cut it and place it.
Do you find that to be a challenge or more time consuming? Like how much time are you spending trying to lock something in, and how much do you lock something in if you really want it to have that sort of unquantized organic feel?
Yeah, it's actually I'm really fast.
Mm-hmm.
I learned to be fast. In the beginning I was really slow, but now I guess like it can it actually I just finished, or I'm in the finishing of a project. I can't talk about it, but
Mm-hmm.
like it was actually the first time I worked 3 months on like not a lot of tracks.
Oh, wow.
It was like the first time, like precise, like playing the bass, like for example, 5 times and choosing the right one,
Right.
recording vocals 200 times and choosing the right 3 ones, you know.
Yeah.
But it's like just you know, my music is not really perfect. If you compare my music to maybe Agents of Time, because Fidele was at your show too,
Yeah.
you know, they are more precise, you know, more, it's more raw
Right.
and precise and quantized, you know. I really love this music, but it's not me, you know.
Sure.
Me, I'm really chaotic, like you saw before the show.
Right. Yeah.
I'm always late.
I mean, that goes back to you trying to be the honest, authentic artist. It truly is
Yeah.
you. That's so funny. I want to take a little quick break and say hello to everybody who's in the chat. Thank you all for joining us today. What's going on, Noise Arcade, Jazz G, everybody who's tuned in a little later. Karina, hello. Shout out to Dex Jetto, who became a VIP member. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And Ray Calvin and Nefertiti Gold. Hello. Welcome. As usual, everybody, if you have questions for our guests, please leave them in the chat. And if they make sense for the conversation, I will weave them in as we go. So I really appreciate it. Oh, what's going on, Star Stuff? We've got Kevin Tetralt. Is that in the chat? Awesome. Grooviest Maximus. What's going on, everybody? Thank you. We're having a chat with Jimi Jules, who has an upcoming pro session this weekend with 343 Labs, getting into like your creative process, all that good stuff over a 2-day sort of workshop masterclass this weekend. But yes, we were talking about your chaotic nature. And I kind of put in the title too, chaos in music production with like Jimi Jules, because we have this video that we put together to promote the pro session. And you talk about how you say, I don't know how to finish a track. I don't know how to finish a song. It just somehow happens in the beautiful chaos of the music making process. I wonder if you can talk about like what you mean by the beautiful chaos of the music making process and what that means for you.
Yeah, it's actually, you know, music making has like two sides, a really bright side and a really dark side. And the really bright side is like 98%, and the last 2% are like the darkest side of the music, you know. It puts you under pressure. I always feel like really stressed if I need to finish something,
Sure.
because my tracks are never finished. I always hear something more, or I could always do like
Tweak
40
something.
different versions
Yeah.
of it. So actually, like this beautiful chaos is like, I don't show you my studio. I need to clean it before, because in this
Right.
process, it's like cables and synth everywhere. And yeah, it's,
That's
yeah,
a beautiful
maybe later.
chaos in itself, though.
Yeah, but like during I'm working, like time flies. It can fly like 20 hours. I never did drugs or something like that, so I don't take substances like other producers to do music. I'm just here, and like music is my drug, actually, you know.
Yeah.
I can stay here for easy 20 hours. And somehow, sometimes tracks feel finished after 10 minutes. Like,
Right.
for example, there's a track on my latest EP on Innovisions, Tinnitus. I did this track in 8 minutes.
Wow. It's funny
It
how
was
that
like
happens
8
sometimes.
done. Yeah, sometimes. And that's what I mean, you know. I don't know how to finish a track, because sometimes it takes like 8 minutes, and sometimes I just recently finished a track I was working on for 6 years or 8
Wow.
years. and it doesn't really sound differently than in the beginning, but something in it, the arrangement and something has changed. I can't explain it, but something feels right now and before it hasn't, and I don't even know what it was, because
Yeah.
for me it's actually, for me, even sounds the same.
Has that ever hindered your music making process and releasing music? Because you are like a professional musician, so you do want to keep up regular releases. So what discipline have you built up to make sure that not every track ends up like that? Takes 6 years to finish,
Good question.
Or were we just
Most
getting lucky because we have some of the 8-minute tracks and some of the 6-year tracks, like,
Yeah, actually, I'm really productive,
yeah,
so I have a lot of material.
right.
Really a lot. So I guess like out of 100 tracks, 4 gets released.
Wow. But you have that 100 tracks to pull from, I think is the important part there.
Yeah, I guess like on my stick to play, I have more than a few hundred tracks that I
Wow.
can play in the club. I could play like easily all night long with only my own tracks.
Yeah.
But the thing is, actually, I have a rule in my music for releases. The track needs to be at least half a year before I release the track.
Really? So at least 6 months.
Yeah, it can be finished, but the release needs to be, if it's not good after 1 year or half a year, then maybe it's not worth to release it.
Sure.
For me, and every producer is always copying the same track again and again and again and again.
Trying to recreate their successes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not recreating. It's just like, it's just a language you speak. Most of the people doesn't understand that, like, they're actually kind of limited because they feel what they feel, and they try what they can do,
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, we had a question in chat from Noise Arcade. Is there a time frame when you work on an idea that you just wouldn't come back to? You kind of touched on that a little bit. Because it is hard to think of a track that's a year old or something, and it's hard to imagine going back to it. But it sounds like you've had both experiences. Some get cut, and then some you hang on to. I wonder what's the distinction.
You never know.
You never know.
I had everything. I had tracks that I hated in the beginning. I'm not a deleting guy. I'm not the guy who does something and then I delete it. I always think about maybe in 2 years. And actually, it's true. I also released tracks that were in this first 10 tracks I ever made, because I went back, or I accidentally came over a hard drive and found those pieces, and I thought like, whoa, the ideas were like amazing, but I wasn't able to create the power for the dance floor.
Right.
It's just ideas, and then I worked it out and I released it.
Yeah,
so you never know.
That's really interesting. I can't imagine, because I imagine a lot of us probably have project folders full of good ideas, but as we get better and better at the craft of production, we can bring those ideas to life even better. So I wonder what it would be like revisiting some very early projects with the knowledge that you have now, like that seems like a good project for anybody to kind of go back and do. That's cool. You mentioned earlier about working fast, about how you're pretty fast at what you do, and maybe that contributes to having so much material. But do you want to touch on like what is speed to you? Like what does that mean in your process? Like what does it mean to be fast?
That I could finish a track in, let's say, 1 hour.
Yeah.
That I can work and I can continue working. I never got stopped by like a loss of ideas or inspiration.
Right.
I have a lot of friends. They are sometimes really blocked, they can't do music for half a year. I never had that. I can do music all day long, 24/7,
For sure.
It's more like and I guess as more you work and as longer you work, you're getting faster. It's like you're getting a pro, you're getting a professional, and you stop. I guess like after 10 years, you stop to think when you're at the studio. You just do.
Yeah, it becomes almost instinctual.
Yeah, you just do, and then it's getting fast. And actually, I was a ghost producer a few years ago for several years, and that made me really fast in the process.
Right. What about ghost production? Do you think helped you in that process?
This, like in retro perspective, it was like the best thing ever happened to me.
Interesting. I'd love to hear more.
Because it was you always learn.
Yeah.
And if you have somebody next to you that is like describing the feelings, and you have to interpret this, sometimes you have to do music you don't like or you are not really into, but you have to do this for your customer, and then like I guess in every genre there is something somebody likes, even if they don't like the genre.
Yeah.
So that's the procedure, it's the way, it's not the final result. It's only the way of going through your career. And sometimes it could be helpful to do something you don't like, just to learn how to do it.
Yeah, because
maybe
you always end up learning some bit of a process. And I think what you talked about with the pressure of doing something for somebody else, that's a lot different than the pressure of doing something for yourself,
Yes. You don't have to think, you don't have to choose, because the other one is choosing.
Yeah. So your brain starts focusing on other things instead of making the choices.
Yes.
That's very cool. Yeah. Speed is really important. I think, do you ever have moments like I also think like when I'm working and I'm working instinctually and fast, like that's when I'm doing my best. But do you ever consciously find yourself spending too much time on something and you just have to kill the idea? You just have to move on. You have to put yourself back into the perspective of just keep moving, that sort of thing.
Sure.
It's like it's discipline, I think.
Yeah, but like this kind of, yeah, in my opinion, it's also hard to explain this because every day is different,
Yeah.
You can work really slow for 15 hours. You can be in the studio the whole day, and the whole day is really crappy, and like it sounds bad, and like it gets worse, and you feel really bad, and like the last 5 minutes, ding,
yeah,
you made like the whole work for 3 days. So
right.
that what is interesting for me in music, you never know. You can start, or actually in these times, you can do your first track and it can be like the biggest hit of all time, and every next track like the worst.
Yes. I think that semi-related, because Keshav in chat asks, what do you do when you mess up a good track? So you ever have like a moment when you're in the studio for 15 hours or something like that and you've got something going, but it just starts to go off the rails? Like, how do you get back on track?
That's what I'm at. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing, and when it gets finished, then it's finished, and when not, then maybe somebody is helping me.
Right.
And sometimes not, you never know, I actually, the worst thing that happened, or the worst thing that always happens to me is like when I'm doing a loop with, let's say, five tracks, and it's already that hit loop.
Right.
Then I'm always like really scared. Oh no, please don't fuck it up.
Yeah. I totally relate to that. Yeah.
I like to go in smoothly, and like in the beginning it's uninteresting, and then like after 2 hours
it's like a little better,
matching the volume, and then you realize, oh, the bass, it's the wrong bass. Oh no, we have the song. Oh, it's finished.
Yeah. But when you get to the good idea too fast, I think it always feels like I always feel guilty. Like oh, I gotta do a little more. Like, yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah.
you have a lot of cool things that you're touching on in the pro session this weekend, but I do want to see if you wanted to talk not without giving it all away. There's
Easy. I have enough to talk.
yeah, there's one little aspect in it that I wonder if you can talk a little bit about without,
Sure.
giving too much away. But the whole making music instead of a diary, I know that's kind of on the list of what's getting covered.
Yeah, that's what we talked about. I'm really fast. I'm going to the studio regularly, actually since Corona. Before I have 3 kids. I'm a father of 3 kids,
Wow,
so time is limited.
for sure.
Um,
You spending 20 hours a day in the studio, but not
yeah,
with three
actually, I
kids.
have the coolest girlfriend in the world.
That's
If I'm
perfect.
under pressure, like I was like the last 3 months, she let me do my thing, and then it's okay. She brings kids to bed, she make them dinner, she brings them to school, and everything's cool.
Amazing.
She's really supportive. I I don't know a cooler girl than she is.
For
So,
sure.
and a more supportive girl than she is. And yeah, it's always, what was the question again? Sorry, I
We're
lost it.
talking about the aspects of making music instead of a diary.
Right. Um, this is really interesting, at least for me, because they told me that I'm a legasthenic when I was a kid. I was reading the notes when I was like small. Like I learned it from 2.5 or 3, so I was like really into music, and I was reading fluently music, but like normal letters, I was really slow.
Interesting.
So I kept on with school and everything, but music, I always wrote music. For me it was kind of a diary, and even now I'm not going to the studio to do an EP or to do an album or to do a single. I'm just going to the studio because I like to go to the studio, and that's like my biggest love besides my family. I'm just doing music. Sometimes I'm even doing folk music or like
Wow.
trance music. I tried trance music last time, like 140 BPM, just to look how it feels to
Yeah.
me. I don't like it, but just to try. So for me, it's like, and the music always reflects my day. If I'm feeling really sad and I can't do like a happy track, then I'm doing
Right.
a really sad track. And when I'm bored, I'm doing a bored track. Maybe the arrangement is 15 minutes and nothing is happening, just like a little beep, beep, beep.
Sure.
So that's my diary, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't feel pressured in the studio. I'm just doing like somebody is writing some notes in a diary.
Yeah. That's fascinating. And you kind of mentioned before a little bit about writing for the dance floor, and about how like those early tracks, how you couldn't kind of make them hit on the dance floor as well as you can now. But you also just talked about like emotion. Do you feel, I know there's like no pressure in the studio, but do you feel always guided by making music for the dance floor, or are there sometimes it's just like you're just making whatever comes out?
I'm never doing a track for the dance floor or for something. It just comes out how I'm feeling. I of course I'm doing dance music most of the time because I like it. I like the boom, and I like the
Yeah.
bass, and I like the hi-hats. And I like to dance. No, I don't like to dance, but I like to watch people dancing.
Right.
But I um let's go back to this honesty thing.
Yeah.
It's more like honesty in the music. If I'm feeling to do a dance track, or like it comes out like a dance track, I never do something on purpose. I try to let the music speak and go its way. And at the end, when I don't like it, I don't need to release it.
Sure. Absolutely.
That's
That's really freeing, actually. And
Yeah, it
it's
needs to be free.
yeah. Um, Talking about, I guess, all your instrumental, I see like the mutes in the background, and I know in the videos that we were putting together, there's some like hand percussion. You're recording different sounds, and does any of that bleed over into live performance? Like, are you doing any hybrid live performance or planning any live hybrid performances, or what is the distinction between the music that you make in the studio versus when you take it onto the stage?
Um, till 7 years ago, I only played live, and it was always a big mess. I played a lot with bands, but I always also played like not DJ gigs, but like this lonely gigs, this lonely live gigs, DJ live sets, or how
Sure.
how we call it, you know. But I want to go back to live. Since this Corona thing, it makes sense to play live on stage, you know.
It feels like
Because
we've all been waiting. We've all been having to be in our studios and not go anywhere and do anything. How did that
yeah,
influence actually? How has the past year of that influenced your work?
yeah, a lot. For me, egoistically, it was the best time of my life. I had
Interesting.
like, yeah, because for the first time I had nothing to do, you know. Before, when I had nothing to do, I still had school or something like that. When you're a teenager, you
Yeah,
are not really free. You are always like, the government is touching your brain every day, you know.
of course.
And now I'm more than 30. Corona came just at the right time, just after our vacation. We did like vacation for the first time, 6 weeks in a row, and then
Wow.
Corona. I just played in America 2 gigs or something like that, or 3 gigs, and then over and bye bye. And in the beginning, of course, I was kind of, how do you say, stressed because of the
Right.
money.
Yeah,
I felt like when this thing is going off, like for 1 or 2 years, we are fucked big time, you know.
for sure.
And then, but like then, you know, the government and everything. I don't. Yeah, most of the people survived in the richer countries, let's say that.
Right. Exactly.
So in Switzerland, I'm really happy to be a Swiss citizen, you know.
Yeah,
So it's also from this perspective, I was kind of chill.
for sure. Being from Switzerland, do you think that there's any unique impact on you as an artist, or the support for the arts there, or the electronic music scene in general? Like, because you did talk about that traditional background, how accepting was the culture of sort of what you're doing now, the electronic side?
So what is the precise question?
I guess
If the artist side or music side, or
anything in particular of note about where you're from, any way it influenced you beyond just the traditional music, and do you feel accepted in that culture's music? I guess you could say, like, is there a big scene around? Like, do you feel part of a community, or do you feel like you have to tour and travel to be sort of to do what you do?
to be honest, in Switzerland or like in Zurich and Lucerne, I'm still the local.
Interesting.
I'm not a big artist here in
Huh.
Switzerland. I need to leave my country. It's always like in Switzerland, you know. And on the other hand, you could be like the biggest artist and you're still struggling because Switzerland is so expensive. You get more money when you're working at the supermarket than being
Wow.
a superstar DJ, you know.
Yeah.
So actually, if we would live in Berlin or like whatever other countries in Europe, we would be totally easy. But in Switzerland, it's still like, we are not like
Yeah.
we don't have more money than the average guy, you know. So that keeps this kind of flow of like being productive. We need to work. Swiss guys are like really into work. Everybody is working all the time,
Yeah.
and they like what they do, you know. And if you are able to earn money through music, then people are happy, you know,
Right.
because it's really expensive here outside. Like for a water, for example, if you buy a water at the Tankstelle, what's Tankstelle, fuel station,
Mhm.
you pay like $6 or something like that
Wow.
for a water, you know.
Yeah.
So I guess this is kind of like the Swiss way of doing music, taking the time for it when it's working, you know.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I'm
It's
always
yeah.
fascinated by how the place an artist is from, or the place an artist works and influences the work and influences how they work. And it sounds like it has a pretty deep influence in how you approach it and just culturally how it happens. Yeah,
Mhm.
cool. We had a couple questions in the chat about environment, what inspires you, that sort of thing. Is your
Yeah,
studio
sure.
separate from your home? Like, is it like a separate studio?
Yes.
And you mentioned 3 kids, so I imagine that is quite helpful.
My dream would be a house with a few friends and a cool studio to hang out. How do you say downstairs?
Yeah.
This is my dream. Dream big.
Yes, for sure.
But honestly, yeah. When I got bigger a little bit, like we was living in Berlin for not a year, 7 months or something like that. It didn't work out because you need family if you have kids, for the support.
Right.
Then we lived in a house with a few friends, and I had my studio like next to it, like just like 1 minute or something like that. And this was kind of the best situation because I was able, after bringing kids to bed, I was able to go to the studio with my pants on,
Right.
only with my pants. Now, actually, and Switzerland is really small in Zurich, so now the studio is a bit more far away, like yeah, the distance, but it's also only 5 minutes. As you saw me
Oh,
before, you saw
wow.
my home.
Oh, so you were
Yeah, yeah.
walking from one to the other.
Now I had like this e-scooter.
Oh, nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
And is there anything in particular you do to your space to make sure that you can keep that fast workflow, make sure you can stay inspired, and anything approach to building that space out?
You mean in a studio?
Yeah, in the studio.
No.
Just bring all the instruments, set up the computer, and good to go.
I can do music wherever I am. I just need time. That's
Right.
the only thing I need. Yeah. I can do music with everything actually. I don't need my instruments. I can take the phone. Everybody is able to do music in 2021.
For sure.
So you don't, yeah.
Is there any type of music you're making that is helping you escape, or I just think because you mentioned the phone, like I think that is so true, and I want to get better at using my phone because sometimes using the laptop, the phone has its own distractions, but the laptop, because it has so many, I can open up my DAW, I can open up Ableton Live and have unlimited, options. The phone being a little more limited. I guess, is there any form of escapism for you in any certain kind of music you're making that is escapist, whether it's going out with the phone and making something or field recording or different things like that? Anything that's kind of separate from, the work side of making music, I guess. Or maybe it's all that for you, I'm not sure.
Hmm.
Sometimes I think about, like, I have groove boxes, right? And like a Novation Circuit groove box. I can go out with that, and I am freed by that slightly because I am just stuck with the limitations of that device, and I can go out wherever. Computer, it's like I have so many options, so I feel, somehow having less limitations creates more pressure somehow. I don't know.
Oh yes, actually, when I think about that, it's like my computer. Actually, my computer is 12 years old, so all
Oh,
the new
wow.
stuff is not running on site on this. I still have Ableton 9. I still have all the old programs. For this session, I my girlfriend gave me her laptop,
Nice.
and for the Pro session too, because on my laptop it's not possible to install any plugins anymore or something like that.
Wow. Is that
And
your
maybe
main
that's,
computer?
yeah. I only have one computer.
And what's the
The
what's the theory on that? Like, why? Yeah, let's see it. Let's break out the antique. Wow, and the Apple still lights up too, I bet. Look how thick it is. A disk drive. What is that for?
That's my everyday laptop since 12 years, 2009 or something like that.
I think that's
And
fascinating because so often in tech, like I deal with this a lot, of course, because I have a YouTube channel where I cover like music tech. So everybody wants the newest, latest, greatest thing. Did you develop a discipline somehow where you're like, I don't care about the newest, latest, greatest thing? Are you constantly kind of reminding yourself, no, I don't need a new computer. This computer is fine. Like, what's the mindset behind it? I would love to hear more about it.
a few things. First of all, in the beginning, I didn't have money for it, so I was like, I was working hard to get this laptop, you
Yeah.
know. On the other side, I already mentioned my grandfather, and he never spent a dime on like unnecessary things, you know. If
Right.
something was, if the shoes were working for 40 years, he wear them for 40 years.
Love that.
And also, like, there was a time I was able, or like since a few years, I could easily buy a new one, you know, but the old one is still working. And I guess I could be more free and more relaxed with an old computer, not having the stress of buying all the new things
Right.
because they are not working on it. It keeps me away from all this stuff. My phone is new, so if I need something, if I need bitcoins, then I
Yeah.
can buy it on my phone, you know. But like music wise, on the other side, you know, there are only plugins, and plugins are like a reflection of something old already been here, you know.
Yeah.
So there was a time when I earned a little bit more money through touring, I started to buy like this guitar pedals, or more guitar pedals and synth and like outboard gear. So internally, I only have like this UID plugins, like only a few of them, because mostly I'm recording already processed. So for example, if I need a delay, or I want a delay on it, I'm already with maybe
Yeah.
this delay or a few other delays I have here. Same with reverb, because in the beginning that took like too much time for me, you know. I was playing something, and when I played something with the soft synth, with the plugin, then I was able to change this, and
Yeah.
then I was able to
It's
put another
infinite. It
filter on
just keeps
it. And it's
going.
like, you know,
Yeah.
never, and it never got better, you know. Most of the time it's the sound that sticks out, like the first sound, it sticks out and wow, it sounds amazing, you know. And then you try to process it, and it gets worse and worse and worse, and after you worked 5 hours on it, like
Yeah.
you take out the plugins and it sounds well again, you know.
Right.
So then a few years I started to just record with reverbs and delays, and just I'm actually using Ableton only as like shifting tool.
That's funny. That's also very freeing. That's another freeing aspect of your workflow. That's very inspiring, for sure. We're coming close to the end here, so any final questions, burning questions that you want answered, please go ahead and drop them in the chat. But Jimmy, I'll ask you to give us, we talked a little bit about one of the aspects of the pro session this weekend, which I'll remind everybody, pro session this weekend with Jimi Jules, kind of a 2-day master class. And I've also got a link in the description with coupon code so you can save. Use the code TAETRO Talks. Link is in the description. But let's give the folks a little bit more of a preview. Kind of run down the 2 days. What are you thinking about? What are you going to be getting into? What are you most excited to get into this weekend?
To meet the people.
Yeah, well, it is interactive. I should mention that
Yeah.
too. Like, there's a moderator, and you can interact live too. So that's actually a really important point.
Yeah, it's like to meet the people. I'm really free, you know. I can't control. Of course, I could produce like I would work like for a guy I'm producing, you know. But this doesn't make sense. I'm more like the masterclass. I thought a lot about it, and I thought like maybe it's more interesting from the ideological side.
Yeah.
How I'm doing music, how I see music, how I see the career. Like I'm speaking about like more personal stuff related to music, you know, and the career and everything, and DJ and how to do things. What
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what's right, you know, or wrong.
Sure.
Not wrong, but right.
Yeah.
You know.
Awesome.
And of course I'm showing my instruments, and I'm showing like my workflow, and what influenced me, and what maybe surprised me. And I will go through a track I made. Maybe it will be full, maybe don't take it personal, but maybe Bogota or Hundeblick, it's
Cool.
still running. I
Yeah.
can't.
That's awesome. Final question. I will give it to Keshav in chat, who says, what to do when no inspiration strikes?
When no, just do.
Yeah, I think, but for me, I always get that question. It's like, you can't rely on inspiration. Like, what is inspiration? And you've spoken to that throughout this chat today.
What is it? Yeah, this is a good answer. What is inspiration?
You just keep working.
Yeah, just do.
Just do it.
Like, yeah, as I said, like maybe you're working nonsense, or you're working on bullshit for 15 hours, and the last 5 minutes are the goal to get.
Yeah,
you never know.
For sure. I hear you 100%. I'm with you there. What is even inspiration? Just do it.
Yeah.
Just go for it. Amazing. Well, everybody, this has been another episode of TAETRO Talks with Jimi Jules. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Please check out the pro session. The link is in the description. You can spend the weekend, if you have no weekend plans, going behind the scenes with Jimi Jules, the process, the music making philosophy. You can get a peek into the chaos, the beauty of all the chaos that is the Jimi Jules workflow. But yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in. 343 Labs. We're live multiple days a week on youtube.com/343 Labs. So make sure you subscribe to that channel over there. Shout out to everybody who was here in chat today. All the members, Gary, Jacob, Karina. I see Jade Renee just popped in, Falguna. Thank you all. Keshav, Noise Arcade, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in. Pro session this weekend. Link is in the description. Tomorrow, youtube.com/343 Labs. Lewis Beck will be live doing some cool production in Ableton Live. But that is going to be it for today, everybody. Jimmy, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Have a good one.